You know, so many of us check our horoscopes. It's everywhere in our culture, right? Promising us these little glimpses into who we are and what our future holds. But have you ever stopped to really think about it? What is astrology? Is it a real science? Or is it just a very old, very popular superstition? Today, we are going to get into it and separate the facts from the myths. So, what's the big idea behind it all? Well, astrology makes this one massive claim that the exact position of planets and stars when you were born can actually shape your personality, your relationships, your entire destiny. The big question we're tackling today is pretty simple. Does this ancient belief actually hold up when we put it under a modern scientific microscope? To really understand where astrology is at today, we've got to go back, way back. Turns out, its roots are tangled up in a view of the cosmos that is, well, it's completely different from the one we know is true today. So this whole thing started thousands of years ago. You had early civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt looking up at the night sky, seeing patterns and thinking, hey, this must be connected to what's happening down here on Earth. Then fast forward a bit, the ancient Greeks come along and layer all their amazing mythology on top of it, giving us the zodiac signs we all know. And eventually, it all got written down in books like Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos, which basically became the Bible for Western astrology for centuries. And this right here, this is the absolute crux of the problem. Astrology was built on a totally flawed idea, the geocentric model, the belief that the Earth was the center of everything and the sun and planets all revolved around us. Of course, we know now that's completely wrong. We live in a heliocentric system. The Earth goes around the sun, not the other way around. Right. And that is a huge deal. The entire rulebook for astrology, all of its interpretations, it's all based on a map of the universe that was proven flat out wrong hundreds of years ago by people like Copernicus and Galileo. So it really forces you to ask a pretty important question. If the foundation is completely cracked, how can you trust anything that's built on top of it? So with that in mind, let's really dig in. Let's put astrology's biggest claims to the test. We're going to break down 5 of its core beliefs and see how they actually stack up against the scientific evidence. Let's just jump right in. Okay, claim number 1. This is the big one, the absolute heart of astrology, the idea that distant planets and stars have a real physical force that shapes who we are and what happens in our lives. So when you look at the actual physics of it, yeah, this idea completely falls apart. The gravitational pull from a planet like Mars is just unbelievably tiny by the time it gets to Earth. In fact, and this is a great way to think about it, the gravitational pull from the doctor who delivered you as a baby was significantly stronger than the pull from Mars. There's just no known force that could possibly be affecting us from that far away. Okay, on to claim number 2. You've probably heard of this, the birth chart. It's supposed to be this perfect celestial snapshot of the sky at the exact moment you were born, acting like a blueprint for your entire personality. But here's the thing, modern science tells a totally different story. Decades and decades of research show our personalities are shaped by this complex mix of our genes and our environment, how we were raised, our experiences. And when scientists have actually tested this, running controlled studies, they found absolutely no connection between a person's birth chart and their real measurable personality traits. 0. Oh, we've all heard this one, right? Mercury is in retrograde again. No wonder my laptop just died. The whole idea is that when a planet looks like it's moving backward in the sky, it's bound to cause trouble down here on Earth. Okay, but what's really going on here? It's literally just an optical illusion. Think about it like this. When you're on a highway and you pass a slower car, for a second, it looks like that car is moving backward, right? The planet isn't actually changing course or hitting the brakes. It's just our perspective from Earth. There's no physical reason why that line of sight trick would make your email get lost. All right, claim number 4 is all about predictions. This is the idea that astrology can see the future, or tell you if you and your new partner are a good match based on your zodiac signs. So what happens when scientists actually test this stuff? Well, it fails. Pretty spectacularly. There have been so many controlled studies where they ask professional astrologers to do things like match personality profiles to birth charts, and the results are always the same. Their accuracy is no better than if they were just guessing randomly. No better than chance. And for our last claim, number 5, let's talk about the moon. The lunar effect, this super popular belief that a full moon makes people act weird, causes more accidents, more crime, all of that. Even though this is a really common belief, tons of research has looked for a link between the moon phases and human behavior. and they found nothing, no statistical correlation at all. So why does this myth stick around? It all comes down to something called confirmation bias. It means that when something weird does happen during a full moon, we notice it, we remember it, and it reinforces our belief. We conveniently forget all the full moons where absolutely nothing out of the ordinary happened. Okay, so if the scientific evidence just isn't there, why on earth do so many of us still find astrology so compelling? Why does it feel so true? Well, the answer isn't out there in the stars. It's actually in here, in our own minds.
A huge piece of the puzzle is the psychological trick our brains play on us, called the Barnum effect. It's actually named after the showman P.T. Barnum, the circus guy, whose whole philosophy was to have a little something for everyone.
Let me give you a classic example of a Barnum statement. How about this one? Does that sound like you? Yeah, of course it does. It sounds like pretty much everyone. Horoscopes are absolutely packed with these kinds of super general statements that feel incredibly personal, but they're written so broadly that almost anyone can relate to them. Our brains just grab onto the parts that fit, and we're left thinking, wow, that's me exactly. So when we pull it all together, the ancient history, the claims that don't hold up, the psychology behind its appeal, where does that leave us? Well, our source material frames the final verdict pretty clearly as a contrast between two totally different ways of looking at the world. And when you lay it all out like this, the difference is just stark. Astrology is built on a disproven, ancient model of the universe and myth. It works through symbolic interpretation. Science, on the other hand, is built on an observable model and relies on empirical testing. And here's a key difference. A scientific claim has to be falsifiable, meaning you have to be able to test it and prove it wrong. The claims in astrology are just too vague and open to interpretation to ever meet that standard. All right, so let's recap the big takeaways here. First, astrology is built on a worldview that science proved wrong centuries ago. Second, none of its many claims about personality, about the future, are backed up by any credible evidence. And third, its powerful, lasting appeal comes from psychology, from cognitive biases like the Barnum effect. And this all leads to the conclusion from our sources that astrology isn't a science, it's an ancient system of superstition. And that really leaves us with one final, pretty powerful thought. If our destiny isn't written in the stars, then maybe it's shaped by things a lot closer to home, by our choices, our actions, and the people we connect with. It kind of puts the power back where it belongs, not with the planets, but squarely in our own hands.